Greetings. My name is Louise Dente, and I welcome you to yet another edition of Cultural Caravan. On this edition, we're honored to continue with our story to talk about a wonderful new book written by Dr. Bessie Blake entitled God's Bad Boy, James Blake and the System, as they discuss the early years as well as some other very important lessons, life lessons that Professor Blake learned and lessons that we all should know. Welcome back. All right, so we really had a great time really talking about your early years, talking about what inspired you to put this wonderful book together. And for those who may have missed the first segment, just tell us the inspiration for writing this wonderful book about your husband's life.
Well, I was inspired, of course, by him and also by a segment on Gil Nobles when he was on the program Like It Is, and he talked about his life and got such a tremendous response. So that was the primary inspiration for getting me started with it.
Wonderful. And you know, as you talked about your struggles, basically your parent, your family, and certain experiences you had with your mother's situation, her condition, which led to your siblings being placed in foster home, and the challenges that of survival that you basically talked to, and basically Dr. Blake, you just did a wonderful job of basically giving us an illustration of some very tense moments, but of human thoughts. And as we went to the first part of this, we looked at the power of the family, the fact that our early years, and I can even attest to that, even though about the fact that people talk together, how we learned to communicate, how we had the extended family, all these things that unfortunately are not as much visible in this society. So that's why the story is so important. Now we're at the point where you're a young man, you actually went on from that experience of meeting some wonderful adults, like you talk about Mr. Harris, you talk about Mr. Tilley, who actually were really put you on the path of self-development, self-awareness. You're now in college in North Carolina, and you are deciding to bring to the college a giant now history, Hajj Malik Shabazz, also known as Malcolm X. And just tell us briefly about that experience and so forth, and your meeting Malcolm X.
Well, I was part of the Campus Echo, which was the school student school newspaper. And we found out that Malcolm would be in the area to have a discussion with the local leaders, well, actually a debate. And the debate was, which way should the civil rights movement go, integration or separation? That was the topic. And one of the people arguing for integration was
McKissick.
Huh?
Floyd McKissick.
Yeah, Floyd McKissick, you know.
And who is he?
And Floyd McKissick was a civil rights leader, very popular, very well known, very strong in the North Carolina area, and very articulate. And so I said to my fellow students, I said, look, if he's going to be in Durham, why can't he come to North Carolina Central University, with North Carolina College at the time? And so we started making plans to get in touch with him, get him to come, and we got in touch with him, and he said, yeah, of course, I'll come to the college. So we got this big auditorium, B.M. Duke Auditorium, getting ready to make all of the announcements, and the president of the college called me in and said, Blake, you can't bring that man here. He was a black man, the president. This is a black college. He said, you can't bring that man here. He said, you students are demonstrating, you're getting arrested, and you're going through all of these sit-ins, and we're funded by the state, and now you want to bring Malcolm X here. This is just too much. You know, so we say, hey, he's coming to Durham, and we want to hear what he has to say. You know, because we were all committed to the integration struggle, because we had been out there demonstrating, going to jail and all of that. And so the president refused and didn't give us the auditorium. So the night of the debate, I approached Malcolm and I told him, we don't have a place for you to speak. And he smiled and he looked at me. He said, I've never been to your campus. I'll bring my camera and I'll take pictures and speak to anyone who wants to speak to me. So we made the arrangements for him to come. That afternoon, the next day, we decided that, hey, wait a minute. there's a place on campus where you have hundreds of students who just normally out there just sitting around reading, etc. Let's get an extension cord and put it in the administration building and put the mic out in this open space, and Malcolm could come and speak. Well, he came, and first of all, most of the students in North Carolina thought that he was going to be in robes and looking all Arabic, and when he showed up looking real crisp and with a bow tie, etc. He got the interest of the students, and he started speaking, and I can tell you within 15 minutes, we had maybe 40 students. By 15 minutes, we had 400 students. And Malcolm was just pounding away, about integration. Now, how you want to integrate with a fox? Chicken don't integrate with a fox. And, you turn the other cheek. Well, if somebody hits you, you hit them back, they'll think about hitting you again. We started listening to all of this, we were young. And then the sun was just beaming on Malcolm. And I interrupted it. I raised my hand. I said, Mr. Malcolm, I said, we have enough extension cord to take this mic and put it under the tree, because you've been out there in the sun. And Malcolm looked at me to me it seemed like half an hour, but it must have been a few minutes. But he looked at me, and I got uncomfortable because I thought maybe he was, disturbed that I had, interrupted his speech. Then finally he looked at me, he said, brother, he said, I thank you for the offer. He said, but the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that a black man should never stand under the tree in the South. 500 people, we just broke up, we just laughed, That summer, this was spring semester, that summer, Malcolm lived in East Elmhurst, I lived in Corona, and he was coming off of Story Boulevard. He saw me, I waved at him, he waved at me. He said, come on over, So I came over, he said, get in the car. I got in the car. Now this was Malcolm was always interested in what young people thought. What did the young people? So he kept asking me, he said, so what did the young people say? What did they say after I left, etc.? I said, wait a minute. I said, listen. I said, I got a bone to pick with you. He said, what? I said, when I asked you the question about moving the mic, I said, you made me uncomfortable because you looked at me for such a long time. Before I can finish, he starts laughing. I mean, he just bent over the wheel, just laughing. And finally he says to me, brother, he said, it was so hot that day, that was one time I started to disobey my leader and teacher. And then we went to the Muslim restaurant on 105th Street. We sat down. And what impressed me about him, that there was people all around him, but he kept his eyes fixed on me. It was like just he and I in the room together. And we just dialogued and talked. But what a wonderful, warm, humorous, funny, brilliant person. Malcolm, that most people don't really know because they didn't have that one-on-one with him. But he loved young people. He wanted to know what they thought, and he was so approachable.
It's a really special glimpse that you share because, as you know, this year, 2015, marks the 50th anniversary of his unfortunate assassination, which was in February of this year. Will mark that, and certainly as we start to, and so many people have written about Malcolm, and some of these things also, not all these things are all factual, but the fact that you've had a genuine human experience with Malcolm, seeing him, the man, the human being, and certainly that's why this book is so special, because it recounts your evolution as a human being, your interaction with other human beings, and your story and your Malcolm story are somewhat similar. I mean, I look, I said, wow, there's a lot of similarity, and the fact that you had that opportunity to meet him and to interact with him is really vital.
In fact, a lot of my students said to me after reading this book that they are now going back to read the autobiography of Malcolm because they see him
just
in
wonderful.
a different light.
Absolutely.
So this book is a motivation for
Absolutely, and so much that it borders in. And
there's so much other thing. I mean to interrupt you. But I was in North Carolina from New York. I didn't understand segregation in the South in the 60s. And when I got there and saw these white-only signs and colored signs and all, it's in the book.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of like, was shocking because what I'd heard and now actually seeing it. And when we went to meetings, white folks always sat in the front. and we had to sit in the back. So when Malcolm had this debate with Floyd McKissick at this lodge, and all of us were there, the students, we were all in the back, and white students and professors from Duke came over because they wanted to hear him. They were sitting in the front. And when the FOI walked in, made all of them get up, go in the back, and put us in the front, that was a revolution.
Wow.
We had never
Oh, yeah.
experienced anything like that
Wow.
in the South. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to point that
Wow,
out.
that's really
that he was
powerful.
just a powerful, uncompromising pillar of strength. You know, and we were a people who were suffering, you know, from the onslaught of the oppressive environment, and we needed that spark as young people. So that's why we gravitated to Malcolm, because he spoke to something that was deep inside of us.
Definitely. Now, in line with that, as we move into, we actually, in the book, you chroniclized that fateful meeting where you both met. And I know last year you celebrated your 50th anniversary. Congratulations. And so just tell us, how did you meet this lovely lady here?
Well, she's going to disagree with me, but I had so many women when I was
I
in
don't
college.
disagree with that.
You don't disagree with that. I was a playboy. I mean, I just, you know, North Carolina, I mean, they're some of the prettiest black women I ever seen in my life, okay, and soft and spiritual, etc. But I had gotten tired, and I wanted one woman. I wanted to settle down and get back to my original plan, which is to get my education and get my sisters home. And I came home one summer and I went to sleep. This is the honest truth. I saw a woman in my vision. I won't say dream, vision. I knew her personality. I knew her complexion. I knew her laugh. I knew her look. I just knew everything about her. And then when I went back to school that September, I was still a little hound. I was hanging around the freshman dormitory to see if there was any new girls. And here comes, I'm with my friend, and here comes Bessie walking up the walkway on the campus. And the minute I saw her, I said to my friend, I said, Harold, here comes my wife. And he said, Blake, what are you talking about? You don't even know her. I said, this is the girl I'm going to marry. He said, Blake, you don't know this woman. I said, I am serious. This is the girl. I know her. And when I walked up to her and spoke to her, you'll see in the book, she gave me the hardest time I ever had from any woman. You know, I mean, I had to actually chase her. I was a pitiful person on campus because I just didn't want anyone else but this woman here. She was engaged, y'all. All right? So I had to work overtime.
Now, thank you for sharing your point. Now let's go to Bessie. Please tell us your side. What was your impression? Oh, well, that's one too.
Well, he's been consistent in telling this story about, you know, he saw me before he met me. He's told that particular story for 50 years, so I'm beginning to believe him. But I wasn't the least bit interested in him. I thought he was what I called a diddy bop.
I was.
I didn't know where I lived, and I just truthfully told him I didn't know, you know, where I lived. And when I saw him coming, I used to go the other way to try to avoid him. And so that was my initial impression of him. And he spoke like, my name's Jimmy Blake, and I'm from Jamaica, baby. And I just said, oh, this is disgusting. That was it. I was not impressed.
No, ultimately, you made an offer she couldn't refuse. What happened? How did you broker that?
Well, actually, I you know, there's one
You
thing
don't
about.
really know what you did, do you?
I guess I do.
Okay.
I had a plan, girl.
Okay.
There's one thing I learned about myself, okay, and about life. If you're determined and you really love somebody, then whatever happens, you don't let it deter you. And she did enough to deter me, but I didn't let it deter me. So I went looking for her one day and found her in the campus echo, college inn, and tried to talk to her, and she still was very cold and very distant, etc. And when it was time to leave, I asked her if she mind if I walked her back to the campus, and she said, "Yeah, the street is free. You can walk, you know." So I started walking with her. And what you tell them, the hook that got you?
Well, and this is, I guess, a good clue for, I don't know, young men. He started talking about Malcolm, as a matter of fact, because I think it was the spring before we met, that Malcolm had come to the campus. And was it Louis Lomax when the word was given? And that particular scene in Harlem where Malcolm had just held his hand and the street cleared at the police station. And the fact that he was reading and talking to me about books suggested to me that he was thinking. And he wasn't coming up to me saying, "Oh, baby, you so pretty," or this, not that I was that pretty, but I'm saying he didn't have that approach. And that was what got me. It was like someone that I could have a real conversation about a substantive topic in our community. So that got me.
Yeah, and I had to change immediately because she was an English major and well-read. So I knew that, hey, baby, wasn't going to make it. So I had to start something, and Malcolm saved me because I had read Malcolm. I loved Malcolm after I came to the campus. So I was able to say things to her with substance.
And basically, as you tell this wonderful love story, and we don't, one thing about, in terms of our saga as a people, you don't hear about the stories that relate to us, and you know that because of our sojourn here in America and the way in which our ancestors were forced to get together, and there was no that understanding the importance of family, of courting, of getting together, of meeting someone, and building, and in terms of building a family and your extended family, for those out there who are probably thinking, wow, 50 years. What were the secrets? What were the secrets that you used? What did you use to actually keep that wonderful story, the relationship together? What would you say to those out there who are also, as you celebrate 50 years plus a relationship?
Well, for me, it's the spiritual part of your life. Romantic love is not enough to sustain a marriage. You need community. You need God, in the mix. And that's one thing that we've had in common. It's like, okay, we might disagree, but there is a spiritual connection, and when we bring that spiritual part of ourselves into whatever conversation, even if it's something very heated, it diffuses it, because that's something we can agree on.
And also, when I saw Bessie when we were going to get married, I said, we're going to have a revolutionary marriage. And she said, well, what is that? I said, we're not going to get divorced. And I said, because I want my children to not have to experience what I went through. I'm not responsible for the family that I come into the world, but I'm responsible for the family that we bring into the world. Also, Bessie is a very balanced person, very spiritual. And the glue that's kept this marriage together, I could tell you very honestly, her mercy. She's merciful, okay, and she's a compassionate, caring person. She's my best friend. I guess I would just say that we are just good friends. When I first told her this story, it was 50 years ago, and I think that was a turning point in our relationship because she had compassion, and she shared with me, and she helped me to realize my dream. We brought our sisters out of foster care. We raised them in our home. She was a young mother with my teenage sisters who had become teenagers at the time. She struggled with them. She worked with them. She helped me to make my dream reality. That's why I love her.
Wow.
Can I add one more
Yes,
thing?
please.
making one another the most important people in your lives.
Yeah.
And we have children 4, and we love them, and I can't tell you how dedicated I am as a mom, and he is as a dad. But we've always taken time for one another. And when I talk to young couples, I encourage them to do that. Sometimes you can get so involved in work or in what the children need that you forget what the two of you need as a couple to keep moving forward. And I like the fact that, I call him Jimmy, has always said, okay, we can't afford a vacation, let's have a staycation. Let's go to Manhattan, and it would be a great big getaway. We always did that.
Again, thank you for sharing that very powerful information, because especially in our society, which doesn't really encourage family, that is so important that people understand the tools, and the elements of how to preserve a very vital relationship that's sustaining to yourself, but also has been one that has helped others in terms of you extending. And I want to think about all of the wonderful programs that you both do, starting with you, Professor Blake. You tell us about some of the things you've done in terms of community support.
I'm very active in the community. I started a program with Bessie's help, by the way, 23 years ago, called the Varied Internship Program, VIP program, where we take young people from the age of 14 to 18, and we place them into jobs and mentoring. We started, 23 years ago. The first child was 14, they're now 37. Okay, that program is ongoing and it's received a lot of accolades, awards, etc. At the college level, I started the Honor Society of Black Student Scholars. I've gotten all the students who are black with grade point averages of 3.5 and above, and I asked them to form this honor society. And one of the criteria for being a member is that you have to reach back and get a youngster or student who's not doing as well academically and work with that person, for the semester. And that's been going on for 9 years. It's working extremely well. I've also been the president of Laurelton Springfield Gardens Chamber of Commerce. I was former district leader, Assembly District 29, president of my block association. One of the things about community and what Bessie and I did was that we never left any of the kids on the block out. We had programs. Our house was like the community center. We went to the movies. We took kids who didn't have fathers to go to the movies. We just duplicated that community sense, and that it's worked extremely well. You have to read the book to get all the details. The Million Man March organization that I started with the help of others in Queens, where we, developed a black college tour, a youth day, economic summits, economic development. We did all of those things, and it's detailed in the book. I guess the underpinning thing is that when God takes you to a certain level, don't just walk away. Go back and take somebody with you, because he brought you there for a purpose. And that's a very important lesson for our youth to know. We have to think as a community, not as an individual. And you'll get richly rewarded as a result of that.
Thank you. And Dr. Blake, this is the second book for you, and as you're telling your story, first your personal story as you relate to the story of growing up in your house with your mom, and now the Speak to the Mountain. Talk about the work and how people can get a copy of this very powerful work that you've prepared for us.
Well, the first book, Speak to the Mountain, and this book, God's Bad Boy, I see as an extension of my work as an educator. First, I was a teacher here in Queens, and then I worked with women, adult women, and educating them so that there would be a better future for their children. So in addition to supporting my husband, I was very much involved in that. And I wanted to tell these stories so that young people could be inspired and know that they can achieve and really make a difference in the community. And for those who would like copies of the book, you can go to litlore.com. That's litlore.com.
You say that again, please?
Litlore.com. Litlore, meaning enlightened wisdom. And or Amazon.com. And you can get the book.
Okay.
Okay.
So again,
I have to say
yes,
that
please.
she is so modest. She has done so many things in terms of. She mentioned adult women, but in her capacity as a college administrator, she's opened up campuses. Two very distinct campuses: the Rosa Parks campus in Harlem and the Gordon Parks campus in the South Bronx. She also traveled extensively with Rosa Parks and is currently working on a piece about Rosa Parks. She is I told her, marry me, girl, and you're going to go places. I married her, and I'm going more places than I've ever been. Because she is that type of person. She's modest, she's humble, but she's a giant.
Definitely. And, we definitely will probably have an opportunity to talk to you about your interaction with the great Rosa Parks as well as Gordon Parks in the next episode. But I want you to, again, I want to say that, on behalf of Cultural Caravan, it has been an honor for us to be able to talk to both of you because you have made tremendous contribution to our community. The work, Dr. Blake, that you put together will be cherished for generations because it definitely bespeaks the human story of so many children and so many families in terms of seeing themselves through the eyes of your husband and his saga and that there is redemption and there is a way of moving forward. So I just want to thank you both for spending this opportunity, giving us an opportunity to share in this wonderful work. And we look forward to having you come back to discuss and to share. On behalf of Culture Caravan, I just want to say thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.